This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News and Disc Jockey News TV. It is Wednesday night. It is lighting night with Nick. Good evening, Nick.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great to have you here with us tonight, Nick. For those of you wondering, I'm going to be looking there because that's where my main camera is, but Nick's over here on a computer and the controls are over here farther on a computer, and we're just kind of bouncing around as we're doing these things, and we're here to talk lighting tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah,
we've got a couple of questions that came through, and a couple of things we're working on. Yeah, this should be kind of fun. Kind of fun stuff.
All right. Well, let's, do you want to start out with the first question? Just get it rocking and rolling right away?
Yeah, just I got to get a couple of things set here and making sure. Well, one of the questions, let's talk. We can talk a little bit about the question. And it was actually, one was posted on as a comment that we're going to deal with, was talking about using lighting for stage and for worship. Because a lot of times we're doing, well, at Mobile Beat, Nick, you were doing some things with presenters. Granted, they were the DJs, but you still had to do some lighting, front lighting for some of those. So it's kind of something that we as DJs run into.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is in this day and age, all DJs and mobile entertainers have to keep their rigs flexible. They have to be able to go into a lot of different types of venues and different, take any gig. You want to be able to pay the bills, so you want to make sure you keep your rig flexible and have a lot of options and not have to turn down a gig just because you don't have an equipment that won't do that one specific job or whatever. So talking House of Worship, I mean, there's a lot of things in House of Worship that are becoming more common and some things that are not. Like, for instance, I've been to a couple churches. There's a church down here in Florida that I've visited several times that has a full concert lighting system in there.
Wow.
It's just incredible. And they put on these big productions every holiday, and it's really cool because they have a very great LD, and they have a really awesome production coordinator, and they put together this huge coordinated thing, and it's great. But for a mobile entertainer, you're probably getting asked to come in as like a secondary thing or something that they want to accentuate something, or even coming in as a wedding. I've had a couple of guys tell me they get brought in for the wedding lighting, and then they'll also get brought in to kind of make the church or the kind of area match both venues.
Nice, yeah.
There are a lot of churches out there right now that are, I hate to say it, but they are somewhat warehousey. They look like they're in a gym. It happens all the time. It's just kind of them responding to the amount of people coming in and how popular they've become.
Sure.
And a lot of the time, uplighting or lighting in general can really help make that venue look really good and professional. So just to start in with that is uplighting.
Yeah.
Uplighting is something that all mobile DJs are now starting to have. If they don't already have it, they're buying more of it. There are a lot of different types of uplights out there. There's a lot of guys that like battery, that like wireless, they like IR control. It just depends. We, of course, have our Freedom series from Chauvet. There's several other different brands out there, too, that also do that. Those are the wireless DMX, IR control, and battery powered. So they got the whole package in there. We also have our Easy Pars, which are just straight wireless without wireless DMX, but they have IR control. So where the mobile entertainer can really benefit, especially in a church situation, is you're not always going to be able to find plugs.
Yeah.
Especially in churches, they weren't wired to have that type of system put in.
Sure.
So you really have to be flexible and be able to move around with the systems. So battery powered in general is good. Wireless control just offers that next level. Now, granted, if you can control with IR, sometimes it's good enough because in a lot of church situations, you don't change the lighting all that much, except for maybe a really slow fade and really ambient change.
Right.
So uplighting is a great thing to add to a venue. And then you can also do your normal wedding gigs. You can do your concert or rock gigs because now you have these pars that can also be used as uplights.
Sure.
So you buy these units that can make your system more flexible, which is great. One of my biggest, I guess, questions when it comes to going to trade shows and talking to customers is that they want a nice warm white spot, something that can light up a speaker or and this is what you were talking about before, John. At Mobile Beat, we had a couple of presenters up in the front, and we had to light them up so you could see them and see, you know, what they're saying and what they're showing off and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the classic way to do this is normally done by an ellipsoidal. It's like a light source, normally a bulb, and then a lens in front of it that focuses that into, you know, certain degrees. Everyone probably remembers the Source 4. That one had, you know, different lenses lens tubes you could put onto it. Our division of Chauvet called Ovation, which is our pro range, they sell an LED ellipsoidal. It has 19, I believe they're 19 10-watt LEDs. The E190 WW, that's where the 190 comes from, and that's a tungsten LED light. Now, the thing about LEDs is that when you try and reproduce the effect that a Source 4 has, or that nice warm white look, you're not going to struggle. It's just you have to be careful, because sometimes you can mix in a pretty close warm white, but in reality it's not the best. So what I like to do personally is I like to use color gels. And color gels are something you can buy from any number of companies, Apollo, Roscoe, any of those guys, and actually put them in front of an ellipsoidal to make that exact color that you want. That way you know you're getting a great warm white out. Right here I actually have a very cool light, something we used at Mobile Beat, called the LFS 75 DMX. This is technically a ellipsoidal, but it's a DJ ellipsoidal, as we like to say in the area. It's very affordable. It uses a single source LED, a 75-watt LED. It does have a lens tube in front of it that you can focus and adjust the actual beam angle and whatnot. But it also has a spot where you can put gobos in, which is actually right here, if you can see that.
Yep, we can see
this guy right here. So then these are the focus points and everything, and then you can move them up and down to align to make the spot bigger or smaller. And then this one also has, this is where the LFS comes in the name, is the LED framing spot. This has shutters that can go into it that'll divide it and cut the beam to the exact size that you want. This is really good for like art, or if you want to frame out a presenter's booth, or if you've got you want to use two of these and frame specifically just the booth and make that one color, or you want to frame out just the person right above the actual microphone stand, so you don't have any excess light spreading out all over the stage.
Sure,
you can do that. The really cool thing about this guy, though, is the front. I'm not going to try really hard not to blind the camera here when I do this, because it's on. Up in the front here, we've got this little lens this little what's it called, a gel frame holder.
Sure.
So you can actually put a gel frame right in the front here, in the front of it, and you can make this any color you'd like. I like to use like I think it's a Roscoe 58 or Roscoe 85, one of the two. But it's a great little lens that you put in here, and this actually, and I'll put it up on the back here. This is a really cold color LED. You can see that spot in the back. I'll focus it up a little bit so you can see it.
Tip it down a little farther, because I can see it on the FaceTime, but there you go, a little farther back towards the back there. There we go. Now we can see it. Perfect.
You can see it? Okay. So that's a very cool colored LED.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is you can put in this, a color gel to bring that color nice and warm white and make it, hit those skin tones and all that. So it's a really nice light. It's very powerful. It can shoot a very long distance, and you can focus it, make it as small or as big as you want.
Oh, nice.
You can make it soft. You can make it hard edged. It just depends on the way you want to do it. And then with the framing shutters, you can really tighten it up and get it exactly where you want. In fact, on the sign at NAMM, we use it to frame out the triangle on the Chauvet sign. So that way we have the Chauvet sign, a specific spot lit up, and then the Chauvet sign itself gets lit up as well. And you don't have any excess light falling off of the side of the logo.
Sure.
One of the other really big benefits to using LED is it's cool. It's quiet, as you can see. I'm just sitting here, talking to you about it with it, and I can grab it with my hands. It's not too hot.
Yeah.
And anybody uses a Source 4,
oh yeah,
they get pretty hot.
They get warm.
So, and this thing's a pretty low power draw when it comes to the amount of power that it draws. But the the really cool thing is that you can actually put in a color. This one comes included with a. Let me grab it here. An actual color wheel included in it.
Interesting. On the video we're seeing the overflow color, the dot in the middle staying white.
Oh, really?
Your room is turning color.
It's just overwhelming the video.
Yeah.
So, but
the whole thing,
so it does.
It's all color, I'm guessing, huh?
Yeah, it's all colors. So you can see it changes. You can see the different colors that it can make here. Hopefully that's a little bit better, right? It's still kind of white.
Yeah, it's white in the middle, but we have kind of, in this particular case, we've got a green outline and a red outline. So again, it's just so bright.
Well, I tell you what. Let's. The other nice thing about this unit is it does have a very nice dimmer built into it. So I'm going to go ahead and dim it down a little bit so we can see it, which is great.
You mentioned throw. What now? Just for a point of reference, how far are you from the ceiling where we're seeing the dot right now?
This is probably only about 8 feet.
Okay.
At the most.
And it looks
so
like
not very far. You really wouldn't use it in this application.
Right. We're too close, obviously.
How close it was. We were shooting gobos, and I mean clearly shot gobos all the way across the convention hall at ADJA and at LDI.
Wow.
So this is something that you can definitely use at a respective distance of like 40 feet. You can use it at 60 feet. It just the problem is that you're really battling the ambient light that's in the room.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have if you have a lot of ambient light in the room, then it's going to be difficult to shoot this thing a long distance. However, if you have if you don't have too much ambient light in the room, you can get pretty good shot distance from wherever you have it located. The one really important thing with these is if you remember when you put a color gel in front of it, the same thing as like a Source 4, you're actually pulling some of the light out of the light that you're using.
Sure.
So you're gonna lose a lot of brightness when you put in a color gel in front of it. Granted, a warm white color gel, you're not gonna lose all that much. But if you put like a red or a blue or a green or whatever, you're really losing a lot of the color that or the brightness that you would have. Mm-hmm. Especially a red. Red's a very hard color. That's why a lot of the like red gobos, they're hard to see because they're harder to project light through.
Yeah. Tip it down a little bit more, Nick. You're drifting back up again. Towards the corner of the
focusing on talking, not on moving the
we're just catching the bottom of it now because it's got to be almost down, shooting in the corner there, and there we go. Now we can see it.
It's right there. Okay. So the cool thing about this is you can do your split wheels, your split color wheels too, and if you've got like let's say you do a Christmas show or a Christmas thing at the church or at the house of worship that you have or whatever it is, you can put like a snowflake in here and do it white, or you can do it green, or you can do it blue. You can do a half blue, half white, like that. Mm-hmm. You can do your monograms, like for weddings. You can split color them, and it looks kind of cool. Yeah. And we've used that for a couple of different instances. But this is a really great and powerful light. A lot of the functions and features that it has are accessible right from the menu. And granted, DMX in the name, it has DMX control. So if you're proficient with DMX, it's a really easy way to control it, and then you don't have to have access to it to set it up. Yeah. We do also put a couple of little rubber feet down on the bottom of it, just in case you have to set it down on the ground or whatever. And it's a great little light. So that's one of the things I'd recommend for House of Worship and the mobile entertainer that kind of wants to be able to do both, because you'll really be able to use these things a lot. Yeah. In both situations. And what
was the wattage of the bulb in there, or the LED?
It's a 75 watt LED.
So 75 watt.
And
so
one of the other things too that you'll notice is a lot of the LED ellipsoidals that are out there, they have multi-source LEDs. So in other words, there's like our Ovation E190 WW has like 19 LEDs all in a big circle. Mm-hmm. And when that goes through a gobo, you get a little bit of almost like a shadow that shows up around the gobo. And with a single source LED, that problem is exponentially less. In fact, you barely even notice it. That's why single source LEDs are so practical. Granted, they're only just now in the last year or so, last 2 years, coming up in power and coming down in price. Yeah. You know, that's the key, is that you can spend as much as you want for one, but when it comes down to it, you have to kind of get a good price going too. So.
Sure.
But yeah, our this is a 75 watt LED. In our Gobo Shop 50 watt, that's a 50 watt LED. And then we, of course, in our new moving head, we have a 140 watt LED. That's in the 400 IRC. So that's a very, very bright single source LED chip.
Sure. So yeah, as an option for doing the person who's going to be speaking, or the pastor, we'll call it, perfect option for illuminating the pulpit area and and off we go.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Hi.
You got a friend visiting?
I do. Nicholas, come on over. You might as well say hi now. Everyone's heard you come in. Come on. This is Nicholas.
Oh man, it looks cold out there.
Yeah, he's a little chilled. It's I think probably about 15 above. This is Nick, and Nick's from Florida where it's nice and warm.
Yeah, it's 80 degrees today.
Yep, he was sweating today.
I'm sweating right now. Actually, I got to get back in front of my AC.
Okay, you go back outside and you go play some more. Thanks. Yeah, they're all having a good time. It's above zero, so.
Yeah, you got to get out and enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, this year it's been that type of year. So yeah, there we have a great option for doing some spotlighting on the stage, which of course is a big part. 'Cause I've had numerous times where we've had worship service, when we're doing it remotely in a gymnasium, and we've needed to illuminate the senior pastor or the bishop when they've been there. So good option for that. Now, the rest of the stage, what kind of, as we look at that now, obviously, having a bunch of those probably not a great option for us. What kind of options?
I mean, for this sort of thing, you really are good for other options on the stage. You can put up a gobo, like a different theme or a different look around the room. You can use the other option too. You can do is our gobo shot 50 watt, like I mentioned earlier, because that'll actually allow you to rotate the gobo from DMX IR or the remote that comes with it.
Sure.
And that's kind of cool, especially if you want to use like a pattern effect or like a snowflake or some type of a thing like that, where you can make it look like there's a feeling in the room. Like I guess a lot of churches that they like cool colors or warm, like when they start out warm, or
if you were using something now, would something like that work for, say, we have our stage, say it's a 16-foot deep stage, 12 to 16 is very common. Would something like that work on the background behind, where you could have that kind of a slight
absolutely
texture to a room?
Absolutely. I've seen people, what they do is they just hang a big white drape back around the back, or on the back of the stage itself, and then just set a couple of the gobo shot 50 watts right on stage, and then you get this great pattern going on the background of this drape back there.
Nice.
Another option that's out there is also our Abyss LED 3.0. It's like a water effect kind of light.
Okay. Yep.
Really cool little thing you can set up back there to spray the back room there. You don't get too many calls for like lasers or anything like that in that area. Although I was at a church just recently that had a crazy laser show in it, which that was I think they may have brought that in after for a Christmas special thing, but it was a lot of fun. But the Abyss 2.0 is really, really cool because it gives you that nice water effect in the back wall. There's a couple of our moving headlights that have a great glass gobo in them. Our scanners, and I believe the 250, the Intimidator Spot 250, has a really great glass gobo in there. That's it's not really a water effect, but it's a I don't want to call it a breakout pattern, but it's like it's just a bunch of random glass. It almost looks like a broken glass gobo. Okay. But it gives it a really cool look on the wall when you kind of put the prisms in and you let it just roll in. It's really, really neat, and it gives the stage just movement and a little bit of, it gives it more feeling. Sure. Which is really cool. So
sure, and added depth for that. Yeah, we're having that in the back.
Yeah. And then you can also, with the gobo shot 50 watt, you could do something like a gobo layering, where you actually, instead of you have the gobo slot that the gobo goes into, but then in front of it you have a spot for a gel. So if you want to you can put color in there, or if you really want to, you can put another gobo in front of it, and then focus in between the two of them and give it kind of like this neat layering effect. Our pro team likes to call that Goomorphing. They've been doing it for a long time. It's really cool. You put a certain gobo on top of another one, and then you focus right in between the two of them, and it's the coolest darn thing you'll ever see. If there's any like high-end wedding DJs listening right now, they know about it because it's a trick they've been doing for a long time. So,
interesting. What a couple of putting two gobos like that. What would the gobos be as an example?
I'll just give you an example. We have been selling a fixture for a long time called the Qpot 560. Yep. And that has a single gobo wheel that rotates, and then a static gobo wheel that can lay on top of it. So what you can do is you can put like a star on a wall or whatever, and then you put another pattern over the top of it and have that rotate. So that star almost looks like it's wobbling and
okay.
making a cool effect. It's really neat. It's obviously available in more of the advanced moving lights, like our Pro series lights. We actually just launched our Rogue series, which is really exciting. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but it just came out, I think, yesterday.
No, I haven't seen anything on that yet.
It's our completely new Pro line. It's our line of moving heads. It's we've got a 140 watt Rogue R1 spot. We've got a 132 watt lamp fixture, which is it's the equivalent of a 2R, but it's a little bit brighter. Mm-hmm. And that's the Rogue R1 beam. And then we got the R2 beam, which is kind of like our Legend 230 SR. A little bit more compact housing, really pretty design actually. And then of course our big dog of a moving head. It's the Rogue R2 spot, and that's a 240 watt LED. And oh my goodness,
wow!
We were playing around with them the other day, and I was just blown away. They are so cool. So if you look online, there's lots of information on it. We gotta actually just launched our website. I think it's ChauvetRogue.com. So
Chauvet
really
Rogue,
cool stuff. But again, that's that Goomorphing thing. If you want to go to that level, that's where it's at. There's nothing like it. So, but you can do that effect too in a very simple what's it called, the GoboShot 50 watt IRC. Mm-hmm. It's capable to do that sort of thing. So
cool.
But and then more in the church market, going back to the uplighting. I mean, the uplighting is really a nice little feature to add in there to kind of create depth in the room and create feeling in the room, especially if you can match the colors of that background effect that we were just talking about with the colors of the uplighting, and now you just have this whole oneness going on in the what's it called, in the room. So
yeah, especially with
really cool.
A lot of the ceremonies in the last few years that I've been involved with, they're going to doing more of a candlelight service for the ceremony. Yep. So what a perfect spot to be able to do just a half a dozen fixtures can really change the look of a room quickly.
Yeah, and if you have the wireless DMX control with a lot of that stuff, you can bring the lighting down in the room as the candles come in, and it's you can really control the whole room as it goes, as the things happen in the room. That's great.
Yeah,
it just shows, it brings the level of production to your show that they want, and then they tell their friends, and now all of a sudden you've got like 6 churches calling you saying, "Can you do that?
We want that. We like that look." That's really kind of cool. We've been talking, since we're talking uplighting, brightness. When we're doing an uplight on a sidewall, say if we have, some churches have a 8 or 9 foot sidewall, some might have a 25 foot. Is there kind of a how bright the LEDs need to be to really have an effect on that sidewall? Obviously, we can dim, but what's kind of a minimum? Is there such a guideline, you think?
It really depends on the ambient brightness of the room. If you've got all the lights off in the room, you don't need much of a light. And actually, there's a lot of guys that use the 10 millimeter LEDs, kind of like in our Easy Par RGBA, to uplight wedding rooms because there's no other light in the room. They can use it, and it works great. And that's all about knowing your application.
Sure.
You take our Freedom Par Quad 5s; those have 25 watts of LED power. Those things are incredibly bright. The thing that's difficult about those, which is probably more to the point of what you're talking about, John, is that when you wash a wall with a light, you have the principal effect that's going to change how it washes that wall is the beam angle.
Yep.
If the beam angle of that light is really narrow, you get this like V coming off of it, and it'll punch up the wall. Normally, if the beam angle is that narrow, it'll punch up the wall pretty high. I know there's a couple of pars out there right now that are very narrow beam angle, very tall wall wash. It's great because it gives you that brightness, it gives you the power. If you're washing an 80-foot wall, you can do it.
Sure.
But with our Freedom Par Quad 5, we elected to go for more of a wider wash. We've got I think it's a 42 or 45 degree beam, 45 degree beam angle on it.
Okay.
I'd have to look again, but it's a very wide wash, and so the LEDs are a lot more powerful to be able to throw that much light in such a wide range.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So the nice thing about that is if you have crown molding or any kind of up and down of the wall, it's going to light the whole thing up. You're
nice.
going to see it all the way up the wall. Whereas if you had that more narrow field light, you're going to see all the problems in the drywall. That's the one thing about uplighting, is it really shows off how unlevel your wall is. Or it was funny because when I first moved into my apartment that I live in, I put some uplighting around the room because I was living down here by myself and I didn't have any furniture. So I was like, yeah, just throw some uplighting up. Let's play with some lights. And man, just drywall, like you can see the lumps in it. But if you use something like the Freedom Power Quad 5, pull it off the wall a little bit, it'll completely remove those shadows. And you got to be, again, and I think I talked about this last week, you got to be really careful about LED power. There's a lot of inflated values out there. There's a lot of, we at Chauvet, we list the actual drive current on the website that we pump those LEDs at.
Okay. One
of the few manufacturers that does that, because we just lay it out. We don't want to have any question. We say, here's what we drive our LEDs at. That's it. Done. And that is a, Ohm's law. It's really hard to defunct that. It's just the way it is. Now, granted, I know certain LEDs, if you use one type of LED and you drive it at half a watt, and another type of LED, you drive it at the exact same power, you might get different outputs because one LED is more efficient than another.
Sure.
So that's where it really comes into. And then we go back to that same thing again, optics. How your optics are above your LED is key. That's how you get the output of that LED, which is normally like 60 degrees into the area that you want. We were talking about that last week with the Core 3x3. Crazy high output of an LED, but without a proper optic on top of it, it just goes just all over the place. So that's really key when it comes to uplighting, is to really get out there and see what your uplights look like. Go to your shops, your DJ shops that have these things in stock, and take a look at them.
Literally,
because you're the one that knows what you're gonna look for in an uplight. You know what your venues are. You know where you're getting calls to go back to. You know what they're expecting. If you walk in with a light that is not going to be bright enough, you got to be really careful about that. So it's really important to go to your local stores or your guitar centers or whatever it is, and check it out. Sure. check this gear out. I actually have one of our brand new Slimpar Hex 6s here. I snagged one up. Most of them went to a show here, and luckily I happened to just have one right here. Right now I actually left it on a program that's doing a very nice warm white. So remember we were talking about the Freedom Power Quad 5.
Yep. And
it's a quad color LED. So it has 4 little tiny chips on the inside of that LED that have red, green, blue, and amber. So what I'll do is I'll actually unplug this one for just a second and see if we can turn on my lighting here. So inside each of these little dies right here, inside each of these LEDs, is a little tiny chip. And this is where you get the tricolor, is RGB, or quad color, which is RGBA or RGBW. Some of them are pentacolor, although nobody really adopted that name. It just kind of got called RGBAW.
Okay.
So that's got red, green, blue, amber, and white. And then the Hex series, which have been becoming really, really popular, those have RGB, A, W, and UV. So this guy has 6 UV LEDs. So there's actually only 6 LEDs in here, and each of them run about 9 watts.
Okay.
So that's really key, actually, because if you think about it, remember about the lensing thing I was talking about before? That you could compare it with a 15 watt or a 10 watt or a 12 watt fixture that's at the same type of LED, and the output might be almost exactly the same or better or worse, or it just depends.
Right.
And that's where the balancing with the optic and the LED are really important. And so that's where you get a lot of the big names in the industry. They spend a lot of time making sure that is exactly the right optic for exactly the right LED. And we take a lot of pride in that because it makes it look really good. So, and in fact, you remember me telling you about how nice warm white can look and how hard it is to mix.
Yeah.
Well, this light right now, I pre-mixed in a nice warm white for you. So this is your warm white. You can see there's a little bit of can you see that at all up there?
Yeah, it looks good. Yep, when you're hitting that corner, we can see things well in that corner.
Just fine?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this is a very nice mixed warm white.
Yeah.
However, when you turn it around and you look at it, I'm going to angle it a little bit so it doesn't blind the camera out. See, in the camera, it looks really good in like a, as a warm white LED. But
yeah.
In reality, there are a little bit of color separation in here, and you'll see it with any LED. It doesn't matter what it is. The lensing is going to show a little bit of each color just because it's mixing it midair as it comes out. And so wherever it's projecting it is going to look great. It's going to look like the color you want. But these lenses are mixing it in midair, and that's really, really important. So just remember that when you're looking at colors with LEDs. So
potentially then, since we're on that, at a certain distance, I mean, granted, it's probably mixing before it goes too far out, but there could be potentially some lights where the mixing would be 4 feet out, for lack of a better way, just to, hypothetically.
Exactly.
And then, of course, that would look terrible under 4 feet, but at 5 feet and beyond, it would look fabulous.
Exactly, and that's all about the lensing. That's what really matters. And now, if you think about it, where are these powers going? They're going right against the wall. You're going to be putting them right next to a wall, so that if they mix in midair, it's going to mix on the wall as it goes up. That's why it's really, really important to have that mix happen right away as it comes out,
right,
as soon as possible. But again, for you to balance that with throw distance is difficult. You have to make sure that there's a good balance between the two, and that's why the core is so nice, is because it mixes it before it even comes out of the lens.
Yeah.
So you get that perfect color. So I've got this sucker set to UV, although in your camera it actually kind of looks blue.
It looks blue, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about this is this. Yeah, look, you can't even. It totally looks blue up there.
Actually, the wall itself has a purple hue to it.
Oh, does it?
But the artwork, the posters on the side, you can see some of those. And I think we had some glowing. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, we can see some things glow.
So yeah, this is the UV in the light itself. And one of the things that I really, really wanted to show you, because I love showing this off, is one of the colors that you can make is with UV all the way up and red all the way up. You get this iridescent pink, and this probably looks kind of white in your screen if I'm seeing
the
that
light
properly.
itself. The hotspot does, but shine it just off center. Shine it more towards that your doorway opening or the curtain there, because the kind of splash off the side, it does look pretty cool.
Yeah, I like to call it iridescent pink. It's a very, very bright color, and it's just been. I mean, it's one of those colors you don't really expect.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see it, and you're like, wow, that's just a crazy, crazy color.
Yeah.
So there's that color, and one of the other things that I wanted to kind of show you, one of the neat things about LEDs is that because they're a specific wavelength, they can target specific areas. So like normally you would do a red, blue, and a green in a tricolor LED to make white, right? So this would be your white. It's kind of blue. It's a little bit blue.
Yep.
And you'll notice that most tricolor LEDs, they're blue. Their full-on white is a little bit blue, or a cool white.
Yep.
You probably can't see me very well at the moment.
No, not you at all. But that's
that's all right. So one of the really neat tricks with these UV lights is if you take out the blue and you go to I'm just going through here really quick.
Yep.
And so if you take out the blue, you've got this like a yellow, like a bright yellow. And that's a good color, because it's a great color for weddings and for shows and stuff like that, because it's very vivid and it's very bright.
Yeah.
But you can add in your UV. Here, I'm just putting her in here. And that UV makes a really, really, really cool color. I'm going to put it on UV again and take it in and out so you can see it.
Okay.
So it's got this, it's kind of like a warm white. So there's your yellow. Maybe do this. Might be easier to see it. So there's your yellow.
Yep.
And there's your warm white. See, it's really neat because the purple actually goes with the yellow and makes this really cool like warm white.
Really?
It's really hard to see. It's
we can tell there's
we can check
can
out at home with a hex colored fixture, but
we can definitely see there's a difference too, the two colors, but who would imagine?
Really do this. Yeah, it's really a funky color blend. Actually, we found it out after we started developing this fixture. It was really cool. So. But anyway, so the flexibility and the options that this light gives you are just phenomenal, because you have so many different colors to choose from and so many different mixes. And the other thing too is power draw. That's something that a lot of DJs don't really consider. They think there's like this one outlet that you plug into that will power your entire system. Yeah. And it's just this magical outlet where there will always be power coming out of it. Mm-hmm. And in reality, that's not really the case. You can blow circuits. I'm sure some DJs have already done that once or twice, and especially if anybody's got a Nimbus blows circuits all the time. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Because you put them on one that's not dedicated just to that one. So the cool thing that this thing will allow is that instead of using the full 9 watts of power to make something like a white, like just the standard white color, you can use just the single LED that's the white, and everything else can be off. And that way you're not drawing as much power, and you can hook a lot more lights up to an inline chain and save yourself a lot of time by daisy chaining them together. Mm-hmm. So it's really nice, because then you don't have to worry about, you can plug it all in one outlet.
Which is convenient.
Do the power calculations, but it's more convenience for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Red looks absolutely terrible on me. I'm going to change that. Yeah. There we go. Much better.
When you're flipping through the colors in the room, the whole room behind you is just changing color. That was pretty cool.
This is a bright light. It really is. I mean, it still amazes me. I thought the Hex 3 was an awesome light, and that's only got 3 LEDs. Yeah. In it. And this one just, it's so bright. Yeah. But anyway, I'm a big fan of the 6 LED amount. It's a great multi-use light. You can use it for your concert stages, you can use it for uplighting, you can use it for just about anything. And then that guy in Halloween says, hey, I need like 10 or 15 UV lights. Yeah. Well, there you go. Yep. You're good.
We can do it. It can be UV and it can be the lightning effect with the little strobing effect or what have you.
Exactly. Strobe the white LED and just pow, pow, pow.
Yeah. Very cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
So those are hex fixtures. And we're gonna go. Is hex or 6, is that pretty much the pinnacle, or is there potential for more?
There's always a potential for more. In my personal opinion, now, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would argue with me on this one, but I still think there's no substitute for a good tungsten color warm white LED. Mm-hmm. You can mix all these colors with this light. You can put a gel on the front of a cool white LED, but in reality, it's never a good substitute, but for the actual specific color that you want. And I think that there's a definite need for a warm white LED, and not to give my competitors a nod, but one of my competitors put a warm white LED in with their Pentacolor series. They had an RGB cool white warm white, which was kind of interesting. I love lighting. I love the industry as a whole. And when I see something cool, I told you this last time, when I see something cool, I acknowledge it. And that was cool. I thought that was kind of a neat move. I don't really know how well it did, but I thought it was a neat concept, because to me, I always want that warm white or that cool white LED. That's why I personally own a lot of the warm white or cool white pars that are specifically like the VW pars, because I use them a lot for like stage setups, where we use them for a halogen crowd blinder. Okay. And then we'll use the white for a strobe. So it's kind of a dual effect light in one thing. Nice. As opposed to having just strobes or having to bring a bunch of extra halogen stuff. Yeah. To me, it just makes more sense. And then when I get that occasional fashion show that I have to wash the entire runway with warm white LEDs, I got the guns for it. So. So to me, I feel like there's always a need for that. There's also some people out there that think that there is not enough of the light green. That cyan is a future color that LEDs will probably develop into. For instance, ETC has a Source 4 PAR or Source 4 LED that has, I believe it's 2 blues, 2 reds, or like an amber and a red. That's like, but it's a different color amber. It's like a salmon amber almost.
Okay.
And then it has 2 blues in it, which is like an indigo and a light blue, which is almost like a cyan. And then they have a UV, of course. And it just depends. There's so many different colors you could just throw in there. I feel like at the time they were probably just throw all this stuff in there.
Right.
But at the same time, it produces a great color blend, and it's definitely unmatched when it comes to that. So there's probably definitely a future for fixtures above hex.
Yeah.
But in the DJ world, I don't know. The reality is the price on the hex fixtures has come down enough that it's affordable for DJs and it's practical. And in reality, how many colors do you really need?
Yeah.
I think what we're going to eventually come to is a question of efficiency, because eventually everybody's going to want battery. Everybody's going to want IR control or something like that. You'll be able to control these fixtures with, and then have them run a specific color for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
So then it's a function of efficiency. Your LEDs need to be more efficient to be able to use your battery less, and also give you more runtime. Like you can charge your lights on Thursday night, run out for the whole weekend, and come back.
Sure.
Know? So it's kind of this slow progression where battery technology, LED technology, they're kind of hanging out together. If you remember our original wells, those have sealed lead acid batteries in them. They're beasts. They weigh a lot. Yeah, they're super heavy. And when we came out with the Freedom series with lithium ions in them, it was, you're talking about a lot of power, not quite as much as the well, but close. And the very small portable package.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those steps. And you're going to take another step soon, and you're going to take another step soon. And there's a lot of new budding LED technology that's coming out. And there's stuff that's actually for like the LFS 75 DMX or moving heads. There's some technology out there right now that's not even LED, but it's really changing the way that we think about how we can project light efficiently. So that's kind of where it's all going. So it's just a matter of finding a way to do something and then doing it cheaply.
Sure.
I shouldn't say cheaply. I should say affordably.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never good to do anything cheaply.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, but
affordably. Do the right job for the right amount of money.
Now with the hex, what was the watt on the hex that you just had there?
9 watt. Each LED is 9 watts.
So if a person has a 9 watt fixture like that, and if you're in a situation where you're running it and you're dimming it down, say you're running at 50% power, load, what have you, the battery life, is it something where it's going to be proportionate? So if I'm running it at 50%, how does that work?
Keep in mind the hex 6 is not battery powered.
Well, yep. If we were doing like the Freedoms, but
like a Freedom, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And if I took it half, it would extend battery life.
Absolutely. So the really nice thing about LEDs is you can do something like that. You can use one color. Let's say the wedding color is red, or let's say the wedding color is green. You can just have the green LED up and all the other ones down. And that means we actually say that in our specs. If you run all 4 colors all the way up, full blast, that's 6 to 8 hours of runtime of that from that battery.
Yep.
If you run one color, 20 hours plus. So you gain a lot of time just running one color. Now, if you dim that down,
you get even more. Okay.
So, and I know a lot of guys actually out there that when they run their gigs, they start the night out with the lights up full blast, but then as the night goes down, they slowly dim them down just a little bit, because they know that if they bring it down just a little bit, they'll get that extra hour out of it. And it's when it comes to cleanup, that extra hour with a little extra light in the room, good deal. So it's what it really comes down to. They know their gear and they know their gig and they know their. And we work with some artists out there, and despite what some people might say, these guys are really good at what they do. So
yeah, very cool, very cool. So we've been kind of all around here. Let's talk about kind of doing some floodlighting for a stage. Some different if a person were going to be hanging some floodlights, let's say, over a stage, what are some options that would work for being about that 20 feet away from the front of the stage, and you want to have more of an even color across the stage? What kind of LEDs would you be looking to use in that situation?
Well, I mean, when you really think about it, you have to think about your distance that you're throwing. So how far, however you're mounting them up. If you're putting up a truss in front of the stage, if you're on a theater bar out on one of the railings, it just depends on how far you're throwing.
Right.
One of my favorite LED washes right now is that thing I had last week was the Slim Bank Tri.
Yeah.
And that thing has a very long throw. But it also gives you a nice wide coverage area, which is good when it comes to stages, because with stages you really want to have zones. You want to be able to light up the drummer and the keyboardist or the lead guitarist or backup guitar or vocalist or whatever. You want to be able to change colors all over the stage, and that way you can make different looks and feels and scenes that you're working with. Like if you want the background, the backup guitar, the drummer, and the keyboardist all to be green, and then the front row to be blue, except for the main artist, you have a spotlight on him or whatever. And that's just the look of the song that you choose to work with.
Right.
And having a lot of LEDs like that will really help you kind of diversify that. But obviously it's important to not only have front lighting, but it's also important to have backlighting, because you give the stage depth, and you'll be able to fill in some of those gaps that the front lighting may not be able to cover. Like you can shoot the drummer from either side and cover in that the areas that the front light may not be able to hit. And you can do that with something like a 4-bar tri. 4-bar tris are great because you can set 2 or 3 of them up behind a band and just give this great kind of concert feel to. I mean, it might even be a stage set up on a trailer. I've done it before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They pull in a trailer for an event, and then they hook a generator up to it and say, there you go.
Yeah.
And I've had instances where in that case I've had to bring a couple, probably 4 bars, and we'll set 1 or 2 of them up on side stage and bring them in on either side so that it lights across stage. I mean, it's not the most ideal situation, but when you don't have anything out front to give a nice front wash, you got to work with what you got.
All right.
Okay,
so let's put you where you're sitting right now. You're the drummer, and ideal situation, we want to illuminate the drummer or get lighting on a drummer for that solo he does it during the show. Where would our best ideal placement be? Just again, from where you are, where would it be in relation to you? To your left, to your right, a little forward?
My favorite way to do it is to have 3 lights on someone at any given time.
Okay. I
like to have 1 right on the front, or 2 right on the front, depending on who it is. If it's a drummer, it's normally just 1 right on the front, because I don't really care about seeing. I can see what he's doing, or she. I guess it could be either. I shouldn't be isolated to one. But I'll normally have 1 light if I can. I'll mount it right up above the center stage, right where the lead singer will be, and I'll have it pointed straight down right onto the drummer. And then I'll have 2 behind them.
So literally right above their head, or would it be slightly forward ideally?
It would be above the center point where the lead singer microphone would be. I would have it directly above their head, pointed straight down onto the drummer.
Okay, wow.
And it's not literally going to be straight down, but it's going to be at kind of an angle.
Slight angle, yeah.
And then what I would do is I would have 2 on either side, because one of my favorite things to do for drummers is when they're just about to go into that breakdown, I'll excuse me, I'll do 2 different lights and say green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, and then, as they're beating the drum, I'll have it just sitting there like just playing with it on buttons. And then the coolest thing is to have a strobe right behind the drummer, like hiding behind them, so they don't even know it's there. Nobody sees it, and then all of a sudden you just hit it and it pops up and it just lights and creates this. If there's a fair amount of fog in the air, it creates these shadows of the drum set and him moving and stuff like that up and over the audience, which is just awesome. Mega Strobe FX12 from Chauvet, perfect for that, because it's a narrow fielded. It'll punch right through the drum set, and you'll see it shoot right up over the stage. We did something similar like that at DJ Expo this year, but with the DJ as opposed to a drummer.
Right.
Because we just had DJs up on stage, and we had a That was the beam bar we had shooting up. We had about 5 of them just making this cocoon over the top of the DJ, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So, and I would do the same thing with a drummer. I think it would look just awesome. That's, I mean, you know, it really depends though. If the band comes to me and says, "Hey, we don't really want to see the drummer," you know, it's like, okay. But one of the other things I had done with a drummer a while back is took an old Chauvet View 6.1, and I'd set it right behind the drummer, so you'd get these like beams of light, like the drummer's almost floating on a UFO, and it would swing out like this, and it would kind of make it look like he was floating, but on the back wall, the rear projection of that light would cause these little bursts of like color and light. And it just looked like the whole band was just on the outside of the UFO, and the drummer was sitting right in the center where he was kind of conducting the whole thing. It was really cool. I actually worked with a band called Star Persons a long time ago. We did that a lot for their shows, and man, it looked just so cool. So, but you know, it's all about being creative.
Yeah.
Think of ways to use your light to show what the band's, and forgive me for sounding a little bit nutty with this, but the band's energy. If you're following the band's energy, your lights are going to look awesome. Yeah, because the crowd and you and the band is going to be all roped into one awesome show. So, but yeah, that's the way I would do it. Especially, you know, I mean, and you can do different versions of it. You can have 2 lights in the front pointed down onto the drummer, and then one right in the center pointed right down behind his head. And if you're going to do that, I would use some type of a white light or some type of a beam light to really accentuate it, because when he goes into that solo, you want to make sure that he's lit more than anything else, so that everyone sees what he's doing and everything. So, and actually, one of the bands I worked with a long time ago, they would tell me that they wanted that drummer so bright and the rest of the stage completely died off, because they had camera guys that would move in on the drummer, and they didn't want anybody to see them. So we took a lot of the lighting off on the front of the stage, and they would walk in, and the drummer would just be, you know, very bright, and you could barely even see the camera guys. They were wearing all black. So it was really, really cool. So again, it's just responding to what your band wants to do and just being creative about your solutions. So
yeah, cool. So talking drummer now, does that change since you've done lighting for bands? Does that change when you go to the other instrumentation a little bit? When you get to the keyboardist or a guitar player, how do you handle them differently?
Well, and one thing you got to remember with the drummer, I guarantee you, most drummers, you could put a headband on them over their eyes, and they could still do what they do, because most drummers have pretty good memory of where everything is. Yep. A keyboarder, though, you can't normally leave him in the dark. Generally. It just depends. Some keyboarders, they could probably do it with their eyes closed. Some guys, I don't know. I've had it happen where you always have to give them a little bit of ambient light somewhere, like with keyboards. Guitarists, not so much. But you know, the lead vocalist that's walking around in the front, or the keyboardist or whatever, they generally need some kind of an ambient light. So you never want to leave them hanging. But you know, it's really important to not sacrifice the look of the show, though, just to make sure he gets a little bit of ambient light. So that's where it's really nice to have LED technology, because you can have a par on either side and have one par that has just a little bit of blue or a little bit of red on at any given time, and it never turns off. So if the entire stage went dark, you'd see it, but you're not going to do that unless it's the beginning or the end. Right. And in the beginning or the end, you can just use your master dimmers, again, if you're using DMX, and just pull everything out. And then when you bring it back in, that like low blue or that low red will come back in. Sure. So it just depends. And again, it just depends on what the band wants. You know, if the band doesn't care, they just say go nuts, then I mean, that's your creativity dream key right there.
It's like Christmas morning. Woo!
Yeah, right. Exactly. I had a couple of bands that would let me do that. They'd say, just, dude, we've seen your work, just go. You know, it's rare to get that, and it's really good to work with people that trust you like that. But it also it's a double-edged sword, because you got to deliver too at the same time. So that stress is always there. But it's I mean, if you love what you do, you're good. So But,
so when you're doing
go ahead, sir.
So when you're doing so we've got the different musicians now. Does that get into the point where you're talking more about the zones, where you're talking about having a stage in zones where you'll be able to illuminate and bring up. That's, you use that in conjunction with some spotlighting in the area, or how do you
use it? You can use it in conjunction with spotlighting, depending on what the band wants. You may want to use like an ellipsoidal, like we were talking about before, the LFS 75 DMX, or any of those number of lights. And normally they really only want the lead singer to be hit with those blinding spotlights.
Mm-hmm.
Although sometimes you never know, they may want the guitarist hit with that too. The problem is that when you're working with a band and you're using static lights, it's difficult to have spotlights in one spot and keep them there. Some guys or girls will just walk back and forth and kind of respond to the audience. And in that case, you need a follow spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you got to pay another guy to come. So it's money, but it's something you can offer to people.
Yeah.
We have the same LED that's in the LFS 75 DMX. We have a follow spot called the follow spot 75T. Oh man, they're gonna kill me for forgetting that name. Anyway, but it's got an iris on it. It's got a color wheel. It's a great little unit. It comes with a stand and everything. And it's a great thing for hip hop shows. Hip hop shows, guys walk back and forth and walk all around. You need a follow spot for hip hop shows. Some rock concerts, you need a follow spot just because you have to be able to keep track of where that person is and have somebody actually follow them with the light. The LFS 75 and the follow spot 75 are great lights for that because they're not very expensive. They're portable. They're light. You can move them around. You can put them in weird spots if you need to. But they're not like these massive things that you have to carry around and highlight people with. But again, they are a DJ version of a pro item.
Right.
So there's a certain level of expectations that you have to have with that. When you buy a light like that I think they're like $3.99 or.
I was going to say, it looked like just did a search here, and it looks like it's the Follow Spot 75 ST.
ST. I just missed the S.
Yep. No, you were doing very well. Just trying to see, looking for. I was just looking to see if there was a map pricing on here that I could see online, but I'm not seeing any.
Yeah, it's okay. But anyway, these bigger follow spots, they'll run you $1,000 at a minimum.
Oh yeah.
So you're talking about a follow spot that's a very, very affordable and very effective, but you don't want to use it in a place where you've got these massive touring lighting systems.
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't going to work. But I've actually used that light in probably over 20 concerts, and it's been great because the entire system is DJ lights. DJ brightness lights.
Yeah.
And it really delivers a great amount of power for the price that you're paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great way to keep the artist in like the spot. However, if you want every single person spotted, you're probably going to need some ellipsoidals, or you're going to need to hire a whole team to spotlight that, and then you're talking some money. But you know what? Some people are willing to pay it, so don't ever be afraid to throw it out there as an option.
Mm-hmm. What kind of a range? I'm looking at the image. I was just going to see if I could somehow get that image up with us here, so we could be talking about. Because I've got this. That follow spot, what kind of a distance would that guy have?
Well, I mean, it has a zoom on it, so you can zoom it in or zoom it out, and it has an iris, so you can actually bring this big circle down to a very small point.
Mm-hmm.
And an iris is kind of like a gobo, but it's a constantly changing center circle. It's like what's inside your eye.
Okay.
Your eye has an iris in there that gets bigger and smaller, and lets more light in, or lets more light, or lets less light in. And this is kind of the opposite. This lets more light out, or doesn't let more light out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really actually kind of cool. If you've ever seen one work, they're really neat. But that has a manual one where you can just shift this thing back and forth, and it'll actually adjust the iris. And that's really nice when you want to like frame somebody up.
Okay.
I mean, I use it in places where it's throwing maybe 80 feet, 60 to 80 feet. It just depends. You know, obviously the ambient light is the big factor. But even then, just a little bit of that extra front light to brighten that person's face up will make all the difference in the world.
I actually got it up there now with us, so it's basically you're above me, I'm here, and the light's right there.
Okay.
The follow spot is. So as we're looking at that now, when you were talking about the iris adjustment, that would be there's two knobs. It looks like on the right side.
Top.
I see one
Right,
on.
it's either the right or the top. I'd have to.
There's a knob at the top.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I can't show you.
Wait, let me pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up. Let's talk about that because this is a good opportunity to kind of go through and explain because the follow spot is one of the areas I've run into where I've needed to have something.
Okay, so what you have there is on the side, that's actually the focus knobs.
Okay.
So that allows you to focus and zoom. Excuse me. Kind of like what was on the LFS 75 that I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's much bigger and they lock in place. These ones they don't lock in place, but there's enough tension on them that they stay put.
Right.
See if you move it a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. If you move it a little bit, it stays put where you left it.
Sure.
And with the follow spot, that's moving around a lot.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure they're locked in place. So normally you get it kind of set to a specific point, and then you just lock it in place.
Gotcha.
So those two knobs in there are the focus and then the zoom itself.
Okay.
The knob on the top, however, the one that looks like it's got a little circle on it, and
Yep.
it's got almost like a gear shift.
Mm-hmm.
That's the actual iris, and as you go left to right, it will open and close that iris.
Okay.
And that iris goes open and close, and you'll see the little dot form out on the subject or wall or whatever it is that you're highlighting.
Sure.
And it's pretty cool. So, and then on the back of that unit, there's actually there's a little touchpad or whatever, not really a touchpad, but like a controller, and that'll give you specific colors that you want to use. It'll allow you to strobe it, which honestly I still don't know why people strobe that one of those. It's a feature. It's the awesome thing about LEDs is it's a pinch to throw in a strobe light. You know what I mean? That's the great thing about LEDs. But at any rate, on the far right side of that, you'll see the power switch and a fuse, a plug-in for it, and then you also have a dimmer. There's two buttons that allow you to dim the light up and down. This is important, especially if you're only using this. If there's not many other lights in the room, you don't need this thing at full blast, because what it'll do is it'll actually cause a circle to show up behind the person that you're hitting. Normally it's good to have the follow spot up as high as possible. Oh, I shouldn't say as high as possible, but there's a certain point, whereas if this is your stage and this is your subject right here,
Yep.
You want to try and get at a little bit of an upward angle so that when the light comes down, the shadow is actually cast on the floor,
Okay.
not cast on the wall behind the subject. But the other issue is if you go too high up, you're going to start to get a shadow across their face. Right? You're going to get this big shadow here, and it's going to look like they have this dark beard right here, kind of like I had it at LDI. But they have that's actually there's a whole science to that,
Mm-hmm.
and of trying to balance out the amount of lights and everything, and make it all perfect without shadows, which is it's. I mean, there's a lot to learn about that. And I'm not going to bore you guys with that tonight, but the key is to try and get that perfect balance between high enough up where the shadow that's cast of that subject is down on the floor, not on the back wall, and you can see their entire face.
Right.
That's the I guess simplest way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if that shadow is a little bit too much, sometimes if it's a black background, you can actually bring the dimmer down a little bit, and then the white, or depending on what skin color the person has, obviously, because that's really going to influence that.
Certainly.
The face is going to pop, or it's going to be brighter than the completely dark material behind it. So if you bring the dimmer down just a little bit, you can actually cause them to be seen and the light behind them to not. Again, it just depends on the ambient lighting.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's a really great little unit. You get a little stand with it when you buy it, and there's the stand itself actually has a pivot point. So there's a little handle down there right below the I guess the display. I don't know where it is, but so you can actually sit there and just hold it and kind of move left and right. And the idea is you have one hand on the iris and one hand on the controller, so you're sitting there following the person around, and it works really well.
Nice.
I've used it so many times, and it. No offense to people that have used the follow spots for my shows, but it doesn't take much to do it. So it's a very easy job to do, and that is helped by the ease of use of the item, not just the person operating it. So, but
you're making someone feel really good. Oh man, he said it was so awesome.
I just hope somebody doesn't throw a shoe at me tomorrow when I'm at work. But anyway, so that's a really great way to kind of accentuate, the head, like the person in the front. I've seen people set them up for DJs, but generally DJs, they don't move from behind their decks. Yeah, they stay kind of back there. So that's where you could use an LFS 75. Then you wouldn't have to pay for a guy to come up there. That's a good thing to do. There's also a couple of lights out there that like the Color Dash Par VW, or one of our Ovation lights is called the FC 165 or something like that. It's not a ellipsoid like what we were showing before, but it's a Fresnel like LED. There's a little tiny LED thing about this big, and it's got this massive glass lens at the front of it, and it can zoom in or zoom out, but it's a soft edge on the outside, so you can zoom it out and cover a very wide area while still getting a really good brightness and good color. So it's that same kind of tungsten color that the ellipsoidal has, but it's a soft edge, and it's a great spread. Wow. So it's just another purpose-built LED light for that same type of application where you want to flood and cover an area where, like an artist, maybe they don't want to stay in one spot. They want to walk around. So you put 3 of them in the front and just give them a nice big wash across the whole area. Right. So, and you can do that with tricolor, quad color, hex color LEDs. You just have to remember that where you're throwing the light, you're going to get the color that you want, but coming out of the light, it may not look quite as good. But 9 times out of 10, you're not even going to see it because you're looking at the artist, not at the light. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the other thing that's really great about like our Slim Bank Tri 18 is it has the barn doors on it. Yep. So when you set it up above the audience, you don't get any bleed, like any light coming out around the outsides. It's very focused, and it clips it out so you can't actually see where the LEDs are coming from. And it looks really good. Sure, so.
And if you're using it on a stage, and say there's a video screen somewhere, the barn doors I think would be perfect to be able to block the light from bleeding onto that screen.
Exactly. And a framing spot is perfect for that too, because you can cut the framing spot down to the exact spot that you want it. And that's, again, that same thing about getting it up high enough and making sure that it's not hitting the back wall or the back screen.
For sure.
So,
Cool stuff. Okay, so we've talked.
Have you been watching any videos from Frankfurt?
I haven't. It was one of those days where I've been running and doing different things, so I haven't been by the computer much at all today.
Yeah, there's some pretty new cool lighting technology coming out. So
that's what I've soon. I've seen a few emails today coming through, but I haven't had a chance to sit down and really dig into that. But I've seen some new things that not even in just the lighting area. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought NAMM would have been our but they must have saved a few things for then.
Yeah, they I think that recently it's been tried to stagger things out, so they have things for each show. I see. Yes. And I think that's that's cool, but it's always makes us not nervous, but it just makes us like excited this time of the year whenever there's a big show, because there's always new and fun, funky technology coming out in the lighting world. So maybe next week, or not next week, week after next, we can sit down and chat about that. Actually, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be here next week, Wednesday.
In 2 weeks.
We may have to, not next week, Wednesday, week after that.
That's nightclub and bar, isn't it?
Well, I'm actually going to be at a different show. I'm going to be down in Long Beach. But, tell you what, we could maybe work out a live broadcast from there.
Sweet. Then you can walk us
more
around.
on your time zone, so I won't have to stay up so late. But yeah, we might be able to work that out. Let's coordinate with that. And we'll see what we can put together.
Yeah,
that'd
that
be
sounds
a lot of fun, and we can show you what we're putting together for the booth, and we got all kinds of new gear over there at the show. So I think it'll be a really good time.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, that sounds great. Speaking of time, we're a little over an hour, so we should wrap things up for tonight and
sounds good.
Get going. So if you've got any questions for Nick with lighting, please put those in the comments below, and we'll address those in our next. Well, maybe not our next session, because if we're going to be going live from the show in Long Beach.
Yeah, we might be able to work some time out for it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, questions, comments, thoughts, put them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you with some of the information, either messaging you, or we'll cover it in our next session. So,
absolutely. And if I know the two questions we had from last week that were really good questions, we had. We tried to answer them this week, but if there's any other further questions you have about those issues, feel free, ask away, and we'll get back to you about it.
Sounds great. That's wonderful stuff. Well, Nick, I'll let you go because it's probably your bedtime out on the East Coast.
It's my night email time.
Yeah, time to get caught up. So, once again, this is John Young with the Disc Jockey News, and this is Nick Airriess from Chauvet DJ. Good night.
Good night, guys.